Well, Jesse, you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire, but I just got to give a little disclaimer. I was looking through the emails. I don't think I received it, so it's going to be extra rapid today. I'm
You
on
didn't
my
get the
toes.
email? You didn't?
No,
You sure about that?
I'm pretty sure about it.
Pretty sure, huh? All right. Well,
Keep me on my toes.
I think you'll be able to adjust
I'll
on the
shoot
fly.
from the hip.
I think you'll have plenty that you'll be able to go with. And look, this is another loaded rapid fire, and that's kind of no. See, I knew someone was going to say it. DK
Beefy.
says too early. Trust me, DK. We're going to be here for a while. Like rapid fire is starting, but it's not going to be a rapid ending. Like we're going to be here for a while with rapid fire because we got a lot to talk about. Starting with Mike Brown, the Wisconsin assistant head coach and wide receivers coach, reportedly will be Notre Dame's next wide receivers coach. Not a done deal, but it's trending in that direction. This is a guy who played wide receiver at Liberty, two-time Big South Offensive Player of the Year. He turned that into a 3-year NFL career with Jacksonville and Carolina. Started his coaching career as a graduate assistant at Michigan in 2016. We can forgive him for that. Wide receiver coach at Cincinnati from 2019 through 2021, part of Cincinnati's college football playoff staff. Got the promotion to passing game coordinator / wide receiver coach there in 2022. And then he followed Luke Fickell to Wisconsin last year, where he was the assistant head coach and wide receivers coach. So what do you think about Mike Brown as the potential candidate? I think it's a little, I don't know what the percentages are, but it is not unanimous by any means in the clubhouse in terms of the opinion about Mike Brown.
Yeah, I think that, based off of just some preliminary kind of research, seeing some responses from, other media people, and I've actually seen some responses from, players too, ex-players. I think the thing that I like about Mike Brown the most is he's a guy that Marcus Freeman trusts. And I think that first of all, should go a long way. And I think that that's kind of like this trend that we've been seeing as Marcus Freeman is not going back, but he's kind of picking out some guys from his time at Cincinnati that he really started to develop some relationships with and is comfortable with, their coaching style. And now he's bringing them in as necessary. So I think it's a great hire in that regard. I think you all obviously, want to be able to work work well with your assistants. And I think Mike Brown, I like the youthfulness of him as well. It's another young coach and another guy who is, proven in my opinion, just because of look at what he's been able to develop at Cincinnati in terms of he got 2 wide receivers, he coached up essentially 2 NFL wide receivers. And I think he did that in a very short amount of time. And I think that when those players got to Cincinnati, they were much more raw than what he might encounter at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to bring in just a little bit better of a talent pool at wide receiver. So if Mike Brown can turn maybe some not lower end recruits, but lower recruits than what Notre Dame is getting at wide receiver into NFL wide receivers, I feel like that that is a better situation for him at Notre Dame because the pool is going to be more talented. So a lot of just good initial thoughts, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
I think that it's important as well that after this news was making the rounds on social media last night, you had 2 of Notre Dame's top wide receiver commits in this incoming class, Logan Saldana and Cam Williams, both tweeting their approval of this hire. And I know Williams was definitely recruited by Mike Brown at Wisconsin. So, there's like, what does Marcus Freeman said up front? You've got to be a good recruiter, but you also have to be a good developer of talent. And you can argue, I think you can make a case that Brian Kelly and Luke Fickell have each run 2 of the best developmental programs in the nation over the last
look at all those guys that are in the NFL from Cincinnati now.
Right. And they weren't getting a bunch of, high 4 and 5 stars at Cincinnati. And you've already he's proven himself with Mike Mickens that you have a guy who can both develop and recruit. You've got a guy in Dylan McCullough who can both develop and recruit. I think this relationship goes a long way, because I think that, you know, if anything, that's the biggest knock, is like, oh, Marcus Freeman's going back and hiring another one of his buddies, you know, because he got Gino Gaduli.
Yeah, but he's not just hiring any of his buddies.
Yeah, you do have to have people that you can trust, and you mentioned that. And when you look at what happened with the Chansi Stuckey thing, I'll get to more of this in a little bit, because in just a second we're going to have some of Marcus Freeman's comments on Chansi Stuckey. When you look at how all of that blew up, I think it's important to have someone he can trust, someone who he has worked with before, so he has seen day in, day out how he interacts with people. He knows what he is like as a recruiter. He knows what those relationships, you know, are about, and how he handles those relationships. And, you know, that was at least from what we have learned, a big part of how this whole thing blew up on Chansi Stuckey. So that is there. The developmental part, I believe, is going to be there based on the track record that Mike Brown has. So overall, I just think that it sounds like it's a really good hire. And, you know, let's face it, I know that there are people who say, well, you know, there are better candidates out there, and, you know, this and that and everything else. Like, these position coaches, like, you don't become like a rock star position coach overnight, you know,
right?
Like there's a lot more to it. And like, none of these guys on Marcus Freeman's staff that we have like Dylan McCullough was not a rock star 2 years ago. He was a guy who was a position coach in the NFL and ended up at Indiana. He wanted to get back into coaching college, and look what he's turned into in 2 years here at Notre Dame. Like, ditto with Mike Mickens. He's a rising star in the profession. And I think that Marcus Freeman, based on everything we know about him, you've got to trust that, you know, like, he's got sound judgment, because, you know, again, like the Stuckey thing, that wasn't completely his hire. I think we all know that at this point.
I think another thing that, you know, with Brown, that's also intriguing, kind of some stuff that I read, is at Liberty, he was also kind of a dual threat quarterback and, you know, wide receiver and stuff. And so when you're working with guys who have a lot of athleticism, which it sounds like Mike Brown did, because again, he was a quarterback, a wide receiver, just wherever he could be utilized, that's something that is good to hear as well, because he can help some of these guys that have a ton of raw athleticism transfer or transform into that wide receiver position. And then the last thing I would say is I just like the little details that you see out of, you know, some of Mike Brown's wide receivers. And I think that was what was missing the most with Stuckey, is the little details, the finer things, you know, how to just the little adjustments here and there. And, you know, a play that comes to mind is when I was kind of looking into Mike Brown, is there was a play where Kyle Hamilton got beat into the corner of the end zone by a Cincinnati wide receiver. And during that play, he made, you know, some good adjustments in order to get to the ball. And that's and we're talking about one of the best defenders in the NFL right now. Like, Kyle Hamilton has made himself already into one of the best NFL defenders. And so if you can see a guy, you know, a position group like that beat, you know, do something to beat a top caliber NFL defender, that's something you should feel good about.
Yep. Okay. So the other side of that, Marcus Freeman, in that media call with the Sun Bowl today, fielded a lot of different questions. And one of the things that he was asked about was Chansi Stuckey and the decision to fire Chansi Stuckey. And here's Marcus Freeman's response to that.
I've had from the last time we spoke, you know, it was 24 hours of deep thought and difficult conversations with a lot of players and a lot of coaches, you know, regarding our overall performance at wideout. And I had to make a difficult decision. And I am truly, you know, just thankful for Chansi and everything he's done and given to this program. And but we had to move forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Had to move forward, not overly revelatory there, Jess. So what'd you think?
I thought that was the nicest way. That was like the Marcus Freeman political cap of putting something that was really nasty about a week ago and making it look like it was, we decided it was time to let go. But there was much more deeper, intense conversations than what he led on. I think the thing I appreciate the most about this whole situation is that they didn't waste any time. They ripped the Band-Aid off. They knew it was a problem. They knew what was likely going to come after this, but I think realistically they got ahead. Because what did I talk about? They like all of these guys are now in the portal. Notre Dame got that out of the way a week ago. They got that, the position group that was going to see the mass exodus, the wide receivers. They got rid of the wide receiver coach. And again, they knew what the ripple effect was going to be. And I think that the main thing is once they got rid of Stuckey, they were hoping that could be damage control for a couple of guys. But that turned out to be a little bit too late. And again, I'm just glad that this Band-Aid is ripped off. The worst part of the offseason is over now, in my opinion. And I think we're going to get to the fun and exciting stuff of seeing what guys are going to come out of the portal at Notre Dame. But if you're going to fire a guy the first day after the season, it is very clear that you guys are not on the same page. There was major issues, and going forward, in order for your team to be at its best, it was without him. So I'm just glad that they did it swiftly. And now it's all under the rug. It's over.
Yeah, look, there were a lot of criticisms of Brian Kelly. What was one of them? That he didn't move fast enough on stuff like this. And Marcus Freeman showed that he's not going to piddle around. Guy had 2 seasons and stuff came to a head and he moved on. And now look, there are a lot of people saying that he fired a scapegoat and kept Parker, who's the real problem. It's fair to have that opinion because none of us were there daily, so we can't say with 100% certainty. What we can say, though, is the wide receivers underperformed. We know that, right? Like there's no doubt about that. The wide receivers underperformed. We can say with pretty good certainty that during the season, the wide receivers were not coached well enough. We know that. It was there for all of us to see. We can also say with certainty that Chansi Stuckey was Tommy Rees's guy. He came to Notre Dame through his connection with John McNulty, who of course was here. And, he was a great recruiter, but we know for certain that he wasn't a good enough developer of the players on the field. Like we were talking about, to the off the field stuff, the relationships, how he treated players. We can't say with 100% certainty, again, because we weren't there. We rely on sources, and the thing about sources is as much as, it's good to have them, you get information, they can still have their own agendas, and they do. Bill Curry, longtime college football coach, used to be on the Mike and Mike show all the time. He always used to say there are 3 sides to every story: yours, mine, and the stone cold truth. And, so there's always going to be 3 sides to all of this. We know the offense had its issues. It started with the development of the receivers, but they still set up a program record for most points, basically a modern record for most points scored over the course of the season, so Freeman makes the decision to fire Stuckey. He kept Al Golden last year. A lot of people didn't like that. Look how it turned out. Where would they be if Marcus Freeman had fired Al Golden last year? So you got to have a little bit of trust, I guess, with the guy at the top. He makes this move. Look at the current staff. D'La McCullough, Mike Mickens, probably the 2 guys who are great at both recruiting and development. He had worked with Mickens before. He hadn't worked with McCullough. They've both worked out, So at the end of the day, this all falls on Marcus Freeman. If it doesn't work out, it falls on him, and it very well could cost him his job. That's what it comes down to. That's what's at stake in all this. For everyone else, it's just, our enjoyment watching Notre Dame football, and you want him to succeed in all this. But literally, Marcus Freeman's job is on the line with every potential decision that he makes. So we'll see where it all goes. And I think you got to trust that he's made the decisions that are in everyone's best interest, including his own.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, I hadn't thought about it in that kind of lens. Marcus Freeman is the head guy. So if there's a problem, he's always the common denominator, right? And so Marcus Freeman isn't making this move. He's not making this move as swift as he is if he doesn't think that Stuckey was detrimental to himself and, more importantly, to the Notre Dame football team. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
So another kind of on adjacent to this, like Freeman was also asked about the departures of Chris Tyree and Rico Flores Jr. and whether he would have liked to see those guys return next year.
When guys earn a degree and are seeking more playing time or a different opportunity, I'm supportive of that. I'm always disappointed when a guy leaves without his degree. And so that's really the situation with those two.
Again, not a whole lot there, but I mean, like,
kind of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he basically said, you know, if you've got your degree and there's a better opportunity for you, okay, then I'm good with that. If you don't have your degree, you know, that's the one that he's hung up on a little bit, and that was obviously in reference to Rico Flores.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think, or do you know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't.
That's okay.
Do you think, or do you know if Lawrence Keys got his degree before he transferred out of Notre Dame?
Oh, man, that's been too long ago at this
point.
Because
Chris Tyree reminds me a lot of Lawrence Keys. And Lawrence Keys went on to Tulane and became a really good wide receiver.
Played for him last year. Yeah.
And very productive for Pratt. And that's kind of where I see Chris Tyree. I think Chris Tyree needs to go because he wants to get drafted as an NFL wide receiver. And then that's his path to the NFL. He's got his degree. He's given his time to Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't utilize him how he should be because he could be a premier wide receiver, in my opinion. He could be a slot wide receiver that plays are designed around at other universities, and other universities would be very happy to have. So I get that. But if you're Rico Flores, it's just like, come on, man. You were here for 6 months.
Again, there was a Chansi Stuckey camp. There was a non-Chansi Stuckey camp. You know, I think read into that what you will in terms of Rico Flores and the fact that Rico Flores was their leading wide receiver as a freshman this year. You know, with Chris Tyree, in terms of his NFL future, what makes him so valuable is his versatility because he's got the return skills as well. He's definitely got speed. He's got running back in his background. Like, he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey, but couldn't you see him plugging into the San Francisco offense and just doing a million different things for the 40? I mean,
he's going to be a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions.
I shudder to think about, the Detroit Lions too. They talk about positionless foot. That's a great one right there. Like between like what they got with Jahmyr Gibbs and like you plug a Chris Tyree into something like that.
You got St. Brown on the outside.
Yep.
I think, he's gonna find his way. I guess what I'm getting at is Chris Tyree is gonna find a place that is gonna appreciate and love him some more. And I think we all want that in life, is people who appreciate and love us for all that we can give. And I think it's gonna help him because I think he's gonna end up he's gonna make a training camp and he's gonna end up playing in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too far on this, but Jonah, again, unless you were in the room, how do you know any of what you're talking about right now? I don't think it is. It's far more than just one guy. I'll just leave it at that. And we were talking. He was talking about Stuckey, saying Stuckey did nothing wrong. Again, none of us were in the room, and we just have, the information that we've got in front of us to go on. But since we weren't in the room, look, it's bygones at this point. What's done is done. And again, I think it had far more to do with just one guy.
I mean, a wide receiver medically retired before the season even started. So, kind of look into that, how much you want.
Right. I can tell you this. There's at least one guy who probably was going to leave if Stuckey had stayed, who is still on the team right now. So,
yep.
Again, take that for what you will. Oh, and by the way, Freeman did say that KK Smith, the other freshman who came to Notre Dame, he had a shoulder injury when he got to Notre Dame and really wasn't able to do much of anything all season long. He is practicing and he's going to be available for the bowl. And Deion Colsey, who played in Notre Dame's first 4 games of the season and then didn't play the last 8 with a knee injury, he's going to be available as well. So that's good news. So you get both of those guys back. So at least the depth. And of course you got Matt Salerno back. You hope that Jaden Thomas's hamstring is finally healthy. So there's going to be some numbers out there. Be curious to see what they're able to do with some of that in this bowl game.
I know a lot of people are going to make fun of me. I didn't realize El Paso was like in a tri-state area. You're on the border of like a different country, and you're on the border of.
It's not really tri-state. It's like duo
Delta
state / like it's down there. That's right. down by old Juarez.
What's cool though is KK Smith is from Texas, so
yeah,
little homecoming party, right? Get some action. Maybe the family will make the trip out there. So again, cool to see a guy that we haven't really seen much from, and now it's like the perfect opportunity to say, hey, what do you got? What do you got going here?
Yeah, DK, Colsey's going to prove our preseason predictions right, getting 500 in the bowl. He's going to go nuts. He's going to go nuts in the bowl. That's right. Okay, fill in the blank on this one. Florida State getting left out of the playoffs is blank.
Florida State getting left out of the playoffs is absolutely ridiculous. My final four, if I was the selection committee, would have been as followed. Number 1, Michigan. Number 2, Washington. Number 3, Florida State. Number 4, Texas. That would have been my final four. I got plenty of examples to back it up. I'll give you 2 just to be quick. If this was, and I think
I was ready for you to break out.
Actually, I got 3 examples, and I'll start with the first one. Ohio State won a national championship with 12 gauge Cardale Jones as the quarterback. That was a third-string quarterback. No one saw that coming. My second example would be if roles were reversed and this was an Alabama team, would they be left out of the playoff? The answer would be absolutely no. My third example would be the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with backup quarterbacks. Do you think that the Eagles should have just been discontinued from the Super Bowl?
No playoffs. That's right.
Just because, you know what I mean? They should have been not allowed into the playoffs. And even when they were winning playoff games, we're not going to let you go to the Super Bowl because, that's the Patriots and that's Tom Brady. And we know what he is, and we know how much better they are than you. I mean, come on. I could go into more examples, but those are just the 3 that I had loaded up and ready.
Frank Reich led the comeback, the greatest comeback in playoff history. Bills over the Oilers, and I believe it was the 93 playoffs when Jim Kelly was hurt in the second half. I mean, they didn't just stop the game because the backup quarterback was in there. Like Caleb Williams, Safe Space, thanks for the super chat, said if Florida State and Clemson switched seasons this year, Clemson was 13-0 but lost their quarterback. Would they have been gotten left? Would they have still gotten in based off recent history? I was going to bring this up as part of what I was going to say. I absolutely don't think so much of this has to do with reputation and the fact that Florida State hasn't been in this situation definitely in the playoff version of this. The last time they were in the playoff was the first year first year of the playoff coming off their BCS championship. I don't think Clemson would have been left off because so much of this has to do with recency bias and history. Even though these committees are trying to tell you that it doesn't have anything to do with it, I just don't buy it. And I don't think Clemson would have got left out. I don't think Alabama would have got left out. I don't think Georgia would have been left out in this same situation. You can go on and on down the list, and it's just ridiculous. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised, but it's just there's an old reggae song. The system is a fraud, and that's what this system is a fraud. They're putting these humans in here as if these people, like some of them pay close attention to football, some of them don't, and it's
on this point.
Did you listen for the party on Saturdays?
The Mike Leach comment when he was at Washington State. Have you seen that one floating around?
Yes.
I wish we had that one queued up. He's like, we got a committee because this country loves committees,
right?
And we're asking this committee to make the decision about the best 4 teams. Yet none of these committee members know or follow football as intense as the rest of us. So, like you said, it's ridiculous. And I've said it from the start. You can't punish a team for what you think is going to happen. You can only reward them for what they have done. Florida State went 13-0. They're a Power 5 conference champion. They had harder out of conference schedules than most of the SEC. They beat a common opponent in Louisville without their quarterback better than some of those teams did.
With their third-string quarterback. That's right.
The
SEC's best out-of-conference win this season was when Kentucky beat Louisville at the end of the regular season, and then Florida State turns around and beats that same Louisville team with their third-string freshman quarterback.
By a better margin.
Right. And
after Alabama just struggled to beat Auburn, it's just like, come on.
if Florida State is so bad without Jordan Travis, then why were they still ranked 5th in the playoff rankings when it was all said and done?
Oh,
Like,
you know what? A good point I saw today was too. I'm glad that you said that. This just means that Jordan Travis has to win the Heisman, right?
I guess so. If he's that valuable,
and your justification is you can't let a team in because of quarterback play, yet that quarterback guided them to what, like an 11.5 record, 12-0 record,
right?
Then he's got to be the Heisman because he means that much. That team is that bad without him. He's got to win the Heisman.
Absolutely.
I thought that was great. When I saw that, I was like, I got to save that one for later.
Yeah. And, you know, in one breath, you've got Boo Corrigan, the committee chair, saying, well, Florida State's winning didn't matter. And then in the next breath, he's saying that Liberty, well, they just kept on winning, you know. And so even though they played no Power 5 teams, it warrants New Year's 6 inclusion, you know, and just, you know, just about everything else has been said on this. And I'll just leave it at this. Boo Corrigan, as some people know, he grew up here in South Bend. Gene Corrigan's son, went to St. Joseph High School. He's a Notre Dame graduate. He's the athletic director at NC State. He was an associate athletic director under Kevin White before he became the athletic director at Army. The most significant coaching hire, other than Jeff Monken at Army, that he probably had to make, you know, when he was the baseball, he was assigned to baseball when he was an associate athletic director here at Notre Dame. And so when Palmineri leaves for LSU in 2006, who's in charge of the search process to find the replacement for Palmineri? It's Boo Corrigan. And he takes a big swing. He goes after Pat Casey, who was at the time the defending national champion at Oregon State, devout Catholic, all that stuff. They take a swing. Pat Casey stays at Oregon State, wins a couple more national championships ultimately. So who do they go from? From Pat Casey, they go to Dave Schrag, who generally regarded as a really good guy, Dave Schrag. But the record shows in 3+ decades as a Division I college baseball coach, he is sub 500. Or I think maybe he might have been a little over 500 the course of his career, one NCAA tournament. But that's where they went from that to that. And really started the downfall of Notre Dame baseball over the next, 15, 16 years until it was resuscitated by Link Jarrett a couple of years ago. And that was Boo Corrigan's hire. And, you know, I've talked about this before, how Dave Schrag had an assistant coach on his staff who was sent out to go recruit a guy at an event in the summer at a baseball showcase. He was given the guy's name, said, you know, go look at this guy, sign him, you know, if he's good. So he goes and looks at this guy. We'll call him Joe Smith. So he goes and he sees a guy named Joe Smith. But as it turned out, it wasn't the Joe Smith that he was supposed to see. But he signed the guy. And they didn't find out that it was the wrong Joe Smith until the wrong Joe Smith showed up on campus to go to class in the fall. And they're like, well, you're not Joe Smith. Yeah, I'm Joe Smith. He signed the wrong guy on Dave Schrag's watch. And that was a Boo Corrigan hire. That's who Boo Corrigan hired to replace Palmineri at Notre Dame. So don't tell me that I'm supposed to trust anything that Boo Corrigan says or does when it comes to anything. The guy is where he is because of the name that he's got, the last name that he's got. His brother's a hell of a lacrosse coach, and he proved that by winning a national championship last year. But don't tell me anything about what Boo Corrigan is supposed to know about anything. So after Friday's Pac-12 championship game, Robert Griffin III tweeted, quote, if we're being real, both Washington and Oregon should be in the playoff, end quote. Do you buy it or sell it?
I sell that. I think RG3 these days, he's just joined the hot take stuff. He wants people to talk about him. I mean, this is the guy who was still trying to, you know, make a case that he could be the quarterback for the Browns, and he could be the quarterback for the Jets, and, you know, all of these things. There's nothing that proved to me that Oregon, you can't lose to the same team twice and say that you deserve to be in the playoff, unless I might give this comment more credit if Washington somehow goes on to win the national championship, right? Like that's the only way, in my opinion, that this comment becomes relevant. But I'm getting real sick and tired of RG3 and Emmanuel Acho and those kind of guys. It just feels like they just say stupid, like they say more stupid stuff than actual intelligent stuff recently. Right. It's just like, what are you actually doing? Is this fake or real? You know, because your job, in my opinion, is to be an honest and true analyst. And so when you say stuff like this, I don't even know if I can trust what you're saying about the other things anymore. So I'm not buying it at all.
Is it pure stupidity, or is it just like we're having takes for the sake of having takes? I mean, the same teams played twice and the same team won both times. And I'm sorry, that's part of what these games are supposed to be for, to, you know, one, to make money for the conferences, but two, to eliminate somebody. And I'm sorry, like Oregon was a good team, but if they couldn't even split with Washington, then no, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They lost to Washington both times. They both ended up being close games, but it's just, you're not a serious person if, like, you're putting this out there in the world. Just like you said, like, how can I take anything you say seriously if this is what you're putting out there, Robert Griffin? I'm sorry. I can't take it.
Side note, have you listened to, I doubt you have, but we watch Browns games a lot in this household because
I'm sure you do.
Naomi likes to stay relevant because she works with a lot of, you know, older age men, and a lot of her customers talk about football. So she likes to stay in the now. And she's actually having some customers come in for the Browns and Bears game in the next couple of weeks. But anyways, Mark Sanchez has been doing some NFL games recently, and I don't know if you've caught any of that, but he is just some of the times I'm like, I'm listening to you, Mr. Butt Fumble. Like, you are criticizing quarterbacks about bad turnovers and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is who I'm listening to right now, but
right.
He has been bad in the booth, and that's all I was getting at. But it comes back to the, like, this is who I'm listening to about certain things. Mark Sanchez talking about bad quarterback play in the NFL.
What, and like 3 weeks ago, Robert Griffin III was, you know, like promoting himself to be the Jets, next quarterback. And yeah,
I will say
there's a lack of quality representation, I think, in the booth when it comes to solid takes.
Yes. DK, I will give you that. Mark Sanchez's flow it might be better than when he was in his prime. It is. He kind of looks like, in my opinion, he looks like Vinny Chase off of Entourage. Kind of.
You know who's good? You know who's really good that, like, I wasn't sure how it was going to go is Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Matt Ryan you've seen.
I think I caught one Matt Ryan game.
For a guy coming straight off the field and into the booth, and like he's stuck with I think he said Andrew Catalon, like solid play-by-play guy, and Tiki Barber. It was Tiki Barber. It's a three-man booth. Yeah, I mean, Tiki's not bad. Tiki's career hasn't gone the way that I thought it would when he left the Giants several years ago. I think he thought that he was going to be a star by now. And I mean, he's got jobs, he's got national jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, Matt Ryan's been really, really good. And I'm surprised that, like, he hasn't had an opportunity maybe to go to a higher booth. Maybe he didn't get that opportunity because he was still kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of playing if another opportunity had come up. So they didn't want to give him too big a booth. But I'd be surprised if he's not in a higher booth next year.
It was funny because the entire time Sanchez, and I can't remember who he does the game with, but the entire time the guy who was doing the game with had to refrain from saying these old quarterbacks because it was Matt Stafford and Joe Flacco, because Sanchez came in the same year Stafford came in. And so, and I'm pretty sure it was very similar years to Flacco as well. And so every time you'd say, oh, these old quarterbacks, he'd be like, oh, well, just kidding, because that means I'm calling Mark old.
But, and you know who got some criticism last week because he filled in for Chris Collinsworth is our old buddy, the Ginger, Jason Garrett,
baby.
He got in an NFL booth with a little bit more exposure, and I heard Bill Simmons, ripping him last week, and like,
I actually thought it wasn't as bad as what he did in the Notre Dame games.
There's just, and I think Simmons said this, he brought up it's just like all these cliches. Like he doesn't give you succinct, true analysis. It's just a bunch of, it's just a bunch of cliches that he's out there spewing, because I think he got so used to, generic coaches speak when he was the head coach of the Cowboys, and he never really said anything in front of the microphones. And that's really who he is as a broadcaster so far as well. He's not giving you any true analysis. He's just kind of giving you, these little one lines, nothing deep.
Michael Hahn really enjoyed your the ginger, but that's deep rooted from a caller that always calls into Dan Patrick's show when Jason Garrett was the head coach, and he would just rant and rant, and all he wouldn't even call Jason Garrett by name. It was just the ginger with a lot of other explicitives kind of following coming before.
So here's what a 12-team college football playoff format would have looked like this year. Maybe we should have done a chart on this and put it up on the screen, but it would have been number 8 Oregon versus number 9 Missouri, with the winner to play number 1 Michigan. Number 5 Florida State versus number 12 Liberty, the winner to take on number 4 Alabama. Number 7 Ohio State versus number 10 Penn State, so you'd get a Big Ten rematch there, the winner against number 2 Washington. And then number 6 Georgia against number 11 Ole Miss, with the winner against number 3 Texas. Scale of 1 to 10, how much does that get you excited for the 12-team playoff?
That gets me really excited, because I feel like all of our issues and complaints are answered, and I feel like I think that the counter argument would be, well, we're just going to want to see more teams and more teams and more teams, and we're going to want more expansion. I don't think so. I think it comes to a point where I think that is a good number, because you are drawing the line of where the good teams are in college football, and I think you could become more oversaturated by potential expansion. I think that playoff and the number that they are going to settle on is just the right amount to have the best pool of college programs playing, but also allowing for the Florida States, the Liberties, the question marks to be able to play out. And so there's no more question marks. There's no more, judgment calls or, essentially, again, ambiguity of who should be let in and who shouldn't be. And so I think that this is, again, the perfect number to draw the line in the sand and say, we feel really good about this group of teams of being the representation of the best, college football that's being played in the country. Now let's let them settle it out and determine if we might have made a mistake of, potentially ranking a team too high, too low, not giving them enough credit, too much credit. I think it's going to be the perfect cocktail of teams playing.
The only thing I don't like about this, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's the teams that happen to be ranked. I'm just talking about from a pure fun / excitement standpoint. All those first round games, of course, are going to be played on campus sites. So for example, you got Ohio State versus Penn State, 2 cold weather teams playing against each other. You don't have Ohio State versus Ole Miss, for example, where maybe Ohio State would have been hosting a Southern team, get them up there in that cold weather, maybe a little snow falling and that kind of stuff. That's part of what I want to see, is some of these Southern teams having to travel north a little bit. So that would make it fun as well. I'm still a solid 8-9 on this, because I love the fact that all these games are going to matter. And it's just going to make it, to me, it's going to make it so much more interesting than what it is. And you're still going to have some discussions and debates with who's the 12 team, who's the 13, 14, the debate is just going to slide from 4, 5, 6, down to 11, 12, 13, 14, and who's getting in and who's not with the cutoff and all that different kind of stuff. But Keith Wigan says, Penn State is no way a top 10 team. I mean, this is Penn State. Over the last 10 years, Penn State would have been the most common, at-large team in a 12-team field, because they lose, they beat Michigan a couple of different times, but they lose to Michigan and Ohio State every year. And so they've got 2 quality losses. Those are their only losses. And they're going to be sitting there right in that range. Penn State is most likely going to be consistently in. And you remember like the whole thing when the Big Ten, they did that, like they let the individual schools decide which of the rivalry games do you want to keep going forward, with the expansion and when we, redo the schedules and all that stuff. Penn State didn't want any permanent opponents. And so what that means, like, who can blame them? Because now they're not going to have Penn State and Ohio State on their schedule every year. So they're probably going to end up with an even higher ranking going forward because of that. Now they're going to, they're going to get, USC and Oregon, Washington, those are going to be part of the mix as well. But Penn State's going to be in there. Penn State's going to be a pretty consistent.
Bring up that Irish Steel 63 comment, not the last one, the one above it.
The Big Ten comment?
Yes.
This one?
Yes.
The Big Ten actually sucks.
Scream it from your rooftops, baby. Penn State is Penn State would have consistently got in every year, and Penn State consistently would have been the first team out every year. Penn State and the rest of the Big Ten West and everyone not named Ohio State and Michigan, fraudulent, garbage. The Big Ten as a whole is a joke outside of 2 programs, and you can maybe say 2.5, 3, depending on what year it is between Penn State and Michigan State if they want to show up again. But Big Ten sucks, in my opinion. It's crappy football. It's overrated. And Michigan and Ohio State get rewarded for playing no one tough.
There's consistently been 3 good teams in the whole conference, right? Yeah. Well, not even consistent. I guess Michigan State in place of Michigan there for a while. Now Michigan has taken Michigan State's place. Michigan State has fallen off. Penn State has always been and also ran kind of, again, sitting in that number 2, number 3 spot consistently behind Ohio State. But we're probably going to end up eating our words, because so are you calling a Michigan loss to Alabama right now? Is that what you're
winning it all?
I'm not going to be surprised at all if Alabama does. We've been sitting here talking about a down year for Alabama, all this crappy quarterbacks, for half the season. And look at where Alabama is right now, just because the devil Nick Saban, he willed them into that spot, and there they are. They're back in the mix again. So I'm not going to be shocked at all.
When does Bama perform its best? When you bet against them, when they're the underdog. And I made good money on Alabama winning that SEC championship. I knew it was coming. My money knew it was coming. You don't bet on Nick Saban as an underdog when he needs it the most.
And that's, again, with this 12-team format, like, they're going to be right in that mix as long as Nick Saban is there every year. They don't even have to be a top 4 team anymore.
The Big Ten West, since the conference realignment, when they split to East and West divisions, 0-10 in the Big Ten championship. That's all you need to know about the Big Ten. And
I couldn't believe those boobs on game day that actually picked Iowa to win. Like,
that was a joke. They had to be trolling. They had to be.
We're supposed to take you seriously when you're literally picking Iowa to beat Michigan on national TV. Come on, we can't take that seriously. Give me a break. Fill in the blank. What happened to Florida State makes you feel blank about Notre Dame ever being in a conference?
This is I said this to someone the other day. I was like, Notre Dame being in a conference is like the case for Notre Dame being in a conference is even more irrelevant now, because what did a conference do for Florida State in this situation? They did everything that they were supposed to. They were a Power 5. They were in a Power 5 conference. They won a Power 5 conference championship. They scheduled 2 tough out of conference opponents. They did everything you're supposed to, and it didn't do anything for them. So if I'm Notre Dame, I say, screw you guys. I'm taking my money, because this was a part of the other conversation that we had, is all this conference realignment is just for the money. And that's all it is. And so if Notre Dame's getting its money without being in the conference, and they're on a national television, coast to coast 6 times a year, guaranteed, they're going to do it every time. And so what I'll say about this is there's universities who need a conference, and there's universities that have proven that they don't need a conference, and Notre Dame has done that. It's about the money. Notre Dame's got its money elsewhere, and they don't need a conference to pay its bills.
Yeah. Everyone who's in a conference has been screaming at Notre Dame that they need to be in a conference. You need to play in these conference championship games. You're hurting yourself by not being in the conference because of blah, 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 blah. And as I have said all along, what problem does Notre Dame being in a conference solve? It solves no problems. It solves no problems at all. Because if Notre Dame is 12-0 next year, they're not missing the play. I mean, they're definitely not missing the playoff at 12-0 in a 12-team format. They were not going to miss the playoff 12-0 if they, in a 4-team format. They were not going to miss it. And being in a conference solves no problems for anybody. Notre Dame's got their own TV contract. They've got access to the playoff. They don't need to be in the conference, and they never need to be in a conference. The only problem it solves is like for the people who still aren't happy. It's like, oh, we got to play Wake Forest and we got to play Boston College and these crappy ACC teams. Would you rather see them play them and win 99% of the time? Or would you rather see them play
Michigan
a tougher regular season and have a chance of losing more and maybe missing out on the playoff as a result? Get into the playoff, and then your loss comes in the playoff if you happen to lose. Or you've got a chance to win a national championship. They've got a better chance at winning a national championship, staying independent, and doing exactly what they're doing right now.
I mean, Notre Dame stuck its neck out to get 2 programs into the ACC, help the ACC out. And what did the ACC do come bowl time? They were selfish. They didn't do any. The ACC did nothing to help Notre Dame in this bowl selection. They knew that Notre Dame wants, if we put an actual affiliated team in there, they're going to make us the money. But Notre Dame does so much more outside of, being in the ACC for football, yet they don't give a crap.
Notre Dame props the ACC's TV contract up. And, literally, if it wasn't for Notre Dame, there wouldn't be an ACC network. And don't forget, we didn't even mention this when we were talking about the Florida State thing, but the ACC killed itself with this whole stupid alliance a couple of years back. You remember, they got so upset, and there was this alliance with the Pac-12 and in the Big Ten. And in the end, the Big Ten did an end around and expanded by bringing in USC and UCLA. And, they were supposed to be helping each other out. And they voted not to expand the college football playoff a year early. This could have been the first year of the 12-team format, but those 3 voted not to let that happen. And so as a result, Florida State sitting on the outside looking in. If they hadn't formed that silly alliance and, tried to do whatever they were supposed to do with it, then you'd have a 12-team playoff this year, and Florida State would be in. And look at where it got everybody. It got Florida State out of the playoff, and the Pac-12 just played its last game Friday night, Washington and Oregon in the conference championship game. So
let me, I want to flip a little Florida State, the last Florida State comments on you, and I think we'll be done here. But my question to you, if Florida State beats 2-time defending champ Georgia, 29 straight win Georgia before Alabama in the SEC championship game, and improves to 14-0.
You're gonna have to start over. You're gonna have to start over. I meant, that's a lot of information. Okay, so start over. Okay.
If Florida State beats Georgia, the 2-time defending national champ, a team that just played in the SEC championship and had 29 straight wins, and they improved to 14-0, are you planting your flag in the ground as the national champion? Are you claiming the national championship?
If UCF can do it, I'm doing it if I'm Florida State. Hell yeah. No doubt.
I think you have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Someone said, if FC beats Georgia, Texas, and win this. Oh my gosh. I will give you your royalties, Bryce. I'm sorry. I did not see that you mentioned that.
Did you cherry pick someone's comments from earlier?
I guess I did.
I did. Stuff.
But I mean, 14-0, baby, and I'm beating the 2-time defending champ. I'm putting my flag in the ground. We're the champions.
TD4ND says, dumb question. Will conference contracts with TV networks influence bowl selections in the future? Do they influence it now? I mean, I doubt there's much influence. Otherwise, Notre Dame would probably have been playing in one of the other bowls because most of them are on ESPN. And the Sun Bowl, for example, is CBS. It's one of the few bowl games that CBS gets. So I doubt that there's much influence now. I wouldn't think that there'll be much influence going forward because, like, the college football playoff is still potentially looking at, the TV contract is going to be coming up. And is everything going to stay with Disney/ESPN, or will they parse it out? Like there's been talks that like Amazon could get involved with some of the first round games. And there's been talks before about Fox getting in on it. And I do think that Fox should be in on it because they're doing a better job, in the last few years with the broadcasting of football. I think that I wouldn't object to altering every other year, just like the Super Bowl rotates around networks, like rotating back and forth between Fox and ESPN doing the championship, and or semifinals. They've obviously got to pay the money to do that. They're not just going to give it to them. But the answer to that question is no. I don't think that the Bulls right now have any influence over that. Paul, thanks for the super chat. Tyler Buckner coming back for lacrosse football walk-on if you're Marcus Freeman. My short answer is no. I think that ship has sailed. Tyler Buckner had his opportunity. He decided to go to Alabama, and that's not the route that I would go if I were Marcus Freeman.
Really sad situation.
Yeah, especially considering the direction, that it sounds like they're going to be going and what they're doing with quarterback going forward. Tyler Buckner could have been the starting quarterback next year, potentially.
Yeah. I think if Tyler Buckner stays, he has a 50-50 shot at being the starting quarterback next season. It's really unfortunate that Tommy Rees convinced him to go to Alabama because I think it ultimately ended his college football career. And I'll leave that at that. But hypothetically, one fun thing to see would be a Riley Leonard and Tyler Buckner, like a little package, like Tyler Buckner is kind of like your leading back, or like maybe it's a wildcat where you don't even know who's getting the ball. Like that would be kind of fun to watch. I would say the only way I see Tyler Buckner playing again is if he's like a H-back or like a tight end or something. I think his days of being a college quarterback are done. But I think if he truly, that's what I mean. And he's got the body and frame to do it. So I think if he really, really, really wanted to play football, his role on the team would be like a tight end. And that, again, that would be all assuming that Marcus Freeman would want him back on the team, or that he would have a role that would fit on the team.
Yeah. Again, I don't see it.
But I think him coming back to Notre Dame for lacrosse ultimately shows his regret. And I think he loved his time at Notre Dame.
Yeah, for sure. Former James Madison head coach Curt Cignetti was introduced as the new head coach at Indiana over the weekend. He addressed the IU faithful at a basketball game and said, "Purdue sucks. So does Michigan and Ohio State." So rate his introduction on a scale of 1 to 10.
His introduction is a 10 out of 10. His willingness to take an IU football job is a 2 out of 10. I think he should have waited a little bit. I think there were better positions to be in, and I think Indiana football is a tough coaching position to be in.
Tough road. Especially with the conference expanding now.
I think he could have done himself some favors by maybe seeing what other jobs were out there. But to each their own, he took his opportunity.
I mean, if I'm being honest, the Big 12 is the place to be right now.
Yeah.
Like I know that, like the Houston job, I think just got filled, but that would have been the way to go, I think. But, this is a 10 out of 10 to me, because if you're a political candidate, you kiss babies, on the campaign trail, and you pander to your base as much as possible. And this is what a college football coach does. You pander to your base. And, Cignetti was out there. He spoke the language of the Hoosiers, and he didn't even have to, do a fake accent to do it. So I thought it was great. He had a lot of fun with it. And of course, the IU people went nuts. All he had to do was say Purdue sucks.
Great fan base.
That's right. He got them all lathered up and ready to go down there. So good luck to him, man, because again, that is not an easy place. That is not an easy place to win football games.
How about good old Chuck Martin beating out Toledo for his second MAC championship this past weekend?
Yeah. Is he going to be a candidate?
I think so. I think his name is going to start popping up a little bit more. But
yep. We're almost done. I told DK.
Good thing DK stuck around.
I know. Told DK we were going to be here for a while in rapid fire. Fill in the blank. 49ers pounding the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly is blank.
It's just the beginning. Dallas is next. You're coming to Jerry World. You got Dak hot right now. Dak for MVP. It's gonna be worse what the Cowboys are gonna do to the Eagles. They're gonna wish they never came to Dallas.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. I just think that it's a sign that the 49ers are probably going to end up winning the NFC.
And honestly, it shows the difference between the 49ers and the rest of the NFC.
When the 49ers are healthy, it's them. And I mean, one of these two teams are probably winning the Super Bowl. And maybe this gives the 49ers a chance to host the NFC Championship game. But it was pretty impressive with what they were able to do. And you're right, we got Eagles Cowboys Part 2 coming up this weekend. I'm more excited for it now than I was a couple of weeks ago.
I had to record the game and watch the end of it. You know, what was the most impressive part, in my opinion, is the 49ers actually absolutely came into Philadelphia's home and beat the crap out of them. They embarrassed them at home. And Philly's a good team at home. And for everyone that doubted, the 49ers when Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel were hurt, I think this shows the importance of having Deebo Samuel back on offense. He's a yak god. I don't think I've ever seen someone get more yards after catch than Deebo Samuel. It elevates Brock Purdy's game tremendously. It makes
We lost you there. You're I don't know if you can hear me, but we can't hear you. But that little stunt you did with your microphone cost you some air quality there.
I'm back.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I just think the 49ers are a juggernaut. And I think if you're anyone else in the NFC, really in the NFL, you should be afraid. I don't know if I've seen anyone in the AFC either that really stacks up with them as well.
Yep. DK, I think DK is still in the house. He is. He says Lions-Browns Super Bowl. DK, again, you were concerned that we started rapid fire too early. We have just gone almost a full hour with rapid fire alone. So
I think everyone was happy my mic went out. I'm back.
I felt like we delivered with some quality rapid fire tonight. Anthony says that Cignetti was a great hire for IU. I don't doubt that. He's good great for IU. I don't know that IU is great for him because it's just such a tough place to play. That's what it comes down to for me. And Andre can't wait till January to see the new players on campus. Who do you want to see? I want to see a lot of them on campus, actually. But
Carr, give me
wide receivers. Wide receivers and Carr probably at the top of the list right now. Oh, DK throwing this back at us. Brian and Sean go 6 hours. Come on, we're just talking about rapid fire. This is probably a record for rapid fire, a full hour tonight. A non-Friday rapid fire show. Rapid fire went an hour tonight because we had such good stuff. So appreciate you being here tonight. Fun as always. Jesse, enjoy it. Let's just end with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's all you fans when we start talking about the Cowboys. That's going to be Sirianni again this week. It's rivalry week, baby. Sorry you don't have a rivalry to get fired up like I do.
Oh, Tommy Gunn's chiming back in. Are we even capable of a BD/SD type show? Come on, man. That's just not fair. That's congratulations on winning a state championship, I guess. Whatever. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.